Hello everybody, you're watching Crash Course, the only show on the internet. Let's get started. I'm your host, Ethan Sumner, and today we're going to be reviewing Freakonomics, written by Stephen Levitt. The book is split up into 6 chapters, each dealing with a specific social issue and looking at that from an economical perspective. The first chapter talks about us humans and why we make certain decisions. The author explains that the decisions we make are split up into 3 different categories: moral decisions, or the ones that we do because they are right; social decisions, or the ones that we do to be cool or to avoid criticism from our peers; and economic decisions, or the ones that we do to make money. For example, a study found that an unusually high number of wrestlers with a 7-7 record will beat a wrestler with an 8-6 record in tournaments. This is because in wrestling tournaments, it is required that one has a positive record to move on to the next round. So in this case, if the wrestler with a 7-7 record bribes the 8-6 wrestler to throw the match, both of them get to move on since they both have a positive record. On the next chapter, Chapter 2, the author talks about how real estate agents are similar to the Ku Klux Klan. And yes, I did say that right. The second chapter talks about how there are many examples of information asymmetry in the world, where one group of people have more information than another group. Members of the KKK had special symbols or gestures that they used to communicate with each other, much like real estate agents do. Now, real estate agents have phrases and symbols that they use between each other, but they probably have something to do with selling and houses, not racism, I think. The third chapter deals with the crack epidemic in America during the 1900s. The author takes an interesting stance on this, stating that crack gangs aren't that different from your local Mickey D's franchise. The reason these industries receive so much attention is because of their potential rewards. Think about it. People start franchises because of their potential profit. This is not too different from gangs recruiting people to sell crack. Foot soldiers, as they were called, were people that were recruited by gangs to sell crack to people on the streets. Although these soldiers had a 1 in 4 chance of being murdered, they still did it because of the prospect of being rich, or becoming rich. This really shows how much people will endure just for a chance of being rich. The fourth chapter talks about crime yet again, but this time about the crime drop of the 1990s. At the time, a lot of speculation and different theories tried to explain the reason for the reason crime plummeted during the 1990s. The author offers many popular theories, such as increased police officers or more incarceration during that time, but the real reason for this crime drop was the Roe v. Wade case. After the Supreme Court case ruled that abortion was legalized in the U.S., according to a number of statistics, unwanted babies are the ones that are most likely to grow up to be criminals. So now that abortion was legal, the would-be criminals were able to be stopped, and thus the crime rate would go down. The fifth chapter talks about a very long debate about whether the environment or the parent affects a child more. The author analyzes many different factors about a child's environment, such as the high school they went to, the way the parent chooses to discipline the child, or something as small as taking the child to museums. He comes to the conclusion that these play little to no role in the child's success. What does play a big role in the child's success is the qualities that the parents themselves possess. Some examples, like the age that the parent chose to have their child at, or their level of education, show responsibility to the child. Finally, in Chapter 6, the author studies the effect of a child's name. Studies have found that people with generally black names are considerably less likely to get a job than the same person with a generally white name. Names that were generally used in upper-class families 30 years ago are now common names for those in lower middle-class families. By this property, someone can easily predict a common name for someone in 20 years by picking names that are common among upper-class families. In the final section of the book, the author follows the lives of 2 boys. One is a black boy born into a poor family with an abusive father, and the other is a well-off white boy with supporting parents. Although many people may expect the white boy to do well and the black boy to not, the exact opposite happens. The black boy ends up becoming a Harvard student and acquiring a PhD in economics, and the other ends up becoming the Unabomber, further solidifying the idea that we should not expect what we might originally think. That's all the time we have for today's show, and as always, thanks for watching.